Hello and welcome back to the Data Privacy Lawyer. Today's review, we're going to be looking at a cookie policy. So let's take a look at this guide from Ford. Okay, so it's really good. They have a button here to manage the cookie preferences. We didn't receive a cookie banner, but again, I'm accessing this site from the United States. This is the ford.co.uk website. So this is being presented to users in the United Kingdom, which made me feel like it was unique that we weren't presented with a banner. However, let's manage our cookie preferences. And we can see here that the strictly necessary cookies are on, and performance cookies, functionality cookies, targeting and advertising cookies are all off. So we're actually going to save these preferences and go back to the cookie policy. So we've got a definition here of what a cookie is. This is really important. I generally will let clients know that providing a definition is really important. A lot of consumers are not sophisticated in the understanding of different terminologies and the implications that it has on personal data. So having a definition in your cookie notice or policy is going to be very essential for addressing your consumers. The people that are reading this are people probably buying a vehicle from Ford. They're not other legal personnel generally. So allowing the consumers of your products to understand what it is if you are providing terminology that is considered generally very legal in nature is going to be very useful for addressing your audience. So when we look at the cookies that are being used, we want to compare and ensure that our cookie preferences section aligns with the cookies that we claim we're using. So we already saw on the other page that strictly necessary cookies were definitely on the preference center we were able to manage. I'm going to scroll down and see if they've listed the other ones like marketing, because that was on the list, and then performance as well. It's really useful when an organization does list the cookies that they utilize. One thing that generally some other organizations have been doing, as opposed to listing the cookies directly on the cookie policy or notice, this actually forms a component of that preference center that we saw above. So instead of listing the cookies here, what some organizations are opting to do is for the manage your cookie preferences, you can actually see here what the cookies are associated with, as opposed to having to update your website every single time these cookies change. Let's say, for example, Ford.co.uk decides to utilize additional functionality cookies. It would be burdensome for them to update this web page every time these cookies changed or are removed, right? So putting them as part of your preference center is really useful, which is why some companies choose to use a consent management platform. And essentially what a consent management platform is, they'll help you review and do a scan of the cookies used on your website so that you're able to know the cookies that are being utilized, because what happens is some companies will use third-party cookies. Capturing these third-party cookies is going to help you with maintaining your compliance and the representations you make on your site related to the cookies that you use. And I know that's such a mouthful, and I apologize for that. But essentially, if you want to maintain your compliance and your obligations to be transparent to your consumers, having a consent management could be really useful if you are a large organization. Now, if you're an organization that uses strictly necessary cookies, that may not be an option for you at this time. I would say depending on the geography where you operate, and then what you want your privacy program to look like will influence whether or not you decide to opt in with a consent management platform. Some popular ones are OneTrust and TrustArc. Those are popular. If you're a company and you're considering having a consent management platform, take a look at my description below and we can talk about it. Functionality was also listed in the preference center. We didn't receive a banner, and I'm not sure if that's because I'm accessing the site from the United States. For anybody that's brand new here, a cookie banner generally is a pop-up. It usually happens at the bottom of the web page, or it happens in the middle. And what that banner is just providing you as a consumer notice that cookies are being utilized or cookies will be utilized, right? I generally, when these policies are drafted, we're not just looking at this notice or policy to the consumers. We're looking at the user experience when it comes to cookies, because cookies constitute personal data under data protection laws. They identify an individual. And then in addition to that, there are certain obligations in certain geographies that must follow a process based on the law, right? In the European Union, the flow must be an opt-in flow, meaning that No company should be collecting cookies prior to obtaining consent and presenting consumers the opportunity to opt into those cookies. In the United States, the general consensus is opt out. Companies can opt consumers into cookies when they access the site, but they have to present them the opportunity to opt out of the cookie usage. So that's the distinction in those geographies. Depending on where your company provides your goods and services will influence what your obligations are under the data protection laws as it pertains to cookies. So let's talk about controlling and deleting cookies. If you as a consumer would like to change how a browser uses cookies, including blocking or deleting cookies from forward websites, or any other website in fact. I wonder what this means. Or any other website in fact. I don't know what the in fact section means. You can do so by changing the browser settings to control cookies, most browsers, etc., etc. I want to see if there's a date when this was last updated. I'm also intrigued. I'm actually going to check it today. But what I wanted to check was, does the Ford.com website present the same user experience as the Ford.co.uk? Some companies will exercise a global approach to their cookie compliance. Some will do it geography to geography. Now, I had mentioned above that opt-in and opt-out is very geography dependent. It's jurisdiction dependent. Opt-in required in Europe, opt-out required in the US. Some companies will present opt-out like what we had here, where I was able to manage my cookie preferences because I'm in the States. But I wonder if the Ford.com, we can actually just check it. Let's go on Google. Oh, interesting. Wow, I'm so glad that I came and checked this. So it's so interesting that just happened, because we were originally on the Ford.co.uk website and we weren't presented with this banner that I had mentioned, right? But on the Ford.com website, which is the US version, we've been presented with the banner. Now, I wonder why that distinction is being made, because surprisingly, the Ford.co.uk should follow the European Union data protection law, because it's still effective in the United Kingdom, even though they're not part of the European Union. The other interesting thing that I see here is we've not been presented with 3 different buttons: accept all, reject all, and cookie settings. That being said, we do have the banner and we do have the opportunity to manage our preferences. So right now I've been opted into the sale and sharing of my information for targeted advertising, which I'm going to opt out of. But that's the only choice I've been presented with. I haven't been presented with the opportunity to opt out of analyzing performance, which is not strictly necessary for the site, user activity and traffic on the website, only with allowing sales and sharing for targeted advertising, which gives me the insight that, again, this is powered by OneTrust. I talked about consent management platforms in other videos. Take a look at my other cookie reviews. I'm going to confirm my choices, but I am intrigued about the fact that we have a cookie banner. It tells us we can manage our choices, but the only choice we're able to manage is the sell and sharing of our personal information, as opposed to cookies that are not strictly necessary for the website. So there's a lot going on for this particular review. If you would like to see something more in-depth for Ford specifically, leave a comment below and I will definitely do that on this channel. I hope you enjoyed this review. Again, at the law firm, we provide legal advisory for organizations on how to comply with the data protection laws. If that's of interest to you, take a look at the description. I'd love to speak with your organization.